Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the messy middle of being out on your own and starting over with the people who've done it. I'm your host, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into today's story of starting over. Here we are for another epic story of starting over and creating a career you love. And in the story of my guests today, that's guests plural, we get to hear about finding the perfect partner to create that career alongside of. Business partnerships have been something on my mind of late, and specifically the special magic of staying open to the possibility and inviting in the people that can help you both to expand and grow into a place that may not have been possible alone. And for my guests today, Georgie Woskett and Elliot Grafton, it was the passion for capturing holidays with mates on film that turned into an incredible filmmaking talent, and an equal passion for creative storytelling that makes you feel something that brought these two together. That and the feeling that there was just something there, something in partnering together to create opportunities that would be life-changing for them both. These guys are so inspiring in the way they make a plan, support each other, and then absolutely send it. Of course, provided that doesn't pose any risk to others. More on that in our chat. In our chat, we talk about the power of networking, goal setting, and trusting your instincts. These two are super generous in the sharing of their business journey, so get around them. Here is my chat with Georgie and Elliot from Grafton Create. We're here with the dynamically creative duo, Elliot and Georgie from Grafton Create. And together, these two deliver world-class and authentic storytelling for culturally rich destinations with memorable, stunning, and unseen footage. Think breathtaking films that exemplify and characterise a place unlike ever before. And they do this in the wild, from the ocean, on land, among wildlife, exploring culture and connecting with people. This is a creative partnership that was born when they realised that together they were exactly what the other person needed to create some serious creative and professional magic. And for some more context to that, it was years of appreciating each other's core competencies before they joined forces to create their company, Grafton Create, with Georgie as creative producer and Elliot as creative director. Their experience and skills work in harmony to establish their goal of a global reputation in cinematic and digital-first films for highly coveted brands. In the 8 months they've been in business together, they have been commissioned to create films for Porsche, Sony, DJI, which is the global drone company, Jetstar, Tourism Fiji, Land Rover, Tourism WA, and Beautiful Destinations, just to name a few. Starting a business with a colleague and trusting each other with each side of the skill set that they bring takes a lot of trust and courage. And I can't wait to hear about your journey into this business partnership. Georgie and Elliot, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thank you, Kim.
Hello, thank you.
You're so welcome. I feel like I didn't quite take a breath then. I was really reading it.
You did well.
Thank you. I'm available for voiceover work if any of those clients are listening. So before we get into your career journeys, tell me, how would each of you describe the other?
Oh, we didn't prepare for this, did we? I knew this was coming.
We did, or we didn't.
Oh, we didn't. I would describe Elliot as an absolute perfectionist, and that is a really, really great thing. It does come with its shortfallings for himself, not for the end result or for me. I would also describe him as a goof in like the best possible way, which is fun because he doesn't take himself too seriously, which means I don't have to take myself too seriously, and I certainly don't. So yeah.
That's nice.
That's brilliant.
I definitely am a goof for sure. First thing that jumps to mind for Georgie would be she doesn't take no for an answer, which is really, really cool because that's something I lack in myself. Is I usually sometimes take no, like I take that no, but Georgie's just like, nah, we're going to do it. We're going to get through it. We'll be there. Another thing would be her hard work. Like she's relentless in her work ethic and just passion for what she does. She just just a guru. She like doesn't stop.
Well, that's exactly the same as him. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably what we appreciate in each other more than anything is it's really hard to find an attitude in someone else that is like your own, and you can't learn or teach that. That's just innate to somebody. So yeah, I think we really appreciate that about each other, and we trust each other fully with that, I think.
It's so true, isn't it? Trying to find that energy match.
Yeah.
You know, for when you need to be up and down or just push each other forward is such a challenge. So it's really cool that you guys have found that in each other. So let's go back to BGC, so before Grafton Create. Georgie, maybe we'll start with you. Who were you?
Well, I had been working for a state tourism board for 5 and a bit years, and that was my life. I gave my life to that job and absolutely loved it. It was a dream job for sure when I started. I read the description and just was like, this is me. I don't know how I'm going to get this job, but I'm going to get it. And thankfully, someone took a chance on me who I really admire and respect to this day. And I'm so grateful that he gave me that chance. And prior to that, I was living in Victoria because that's where I'm from originally. And I was working in buying. So I was a buying assistant for Myer. And then I was a product developer for a lot of FMCGs and developing homewares for the likes of Bunnings and Target and Kmart. And that was really fun. And interestingly, along my whole career journey, I've been involved in production, whether it's from goods to film now. So yeah, I think it's the process that I really enjoy, of that creativity from ideation to execution.
It's really fun when you can get to that stage in your career where you see the threads. I think you can't always see them when you're in the thick of it, but being able to look back and go, oh, hang on, that's how that all links together. Elliot, how about you? Before, I'm conscious that your last name is Grafton, so like BGC doesn't work exactly, but before this creative partnership, who were you?
I started my career being a bartender, saving up as much money as I could to go out camping with my friends, exploring different places around South Australia. I always brought a GoPro camera with me on those trips and started filming little fun videos with my friends. And it just turned into this passion that I never thought. It kind of came out of nowhere. I used to be a big movie watcher, so I used to watch a lot of movies at night. But then as soon as I started videoing, it swapped from watching movies to editing at night and editing my trips. And there was definitely, I could notice that passion growing. And it took me about 2 years of working at the bar, saving up to buy my first drone. And then from that, it's when it kind of blossomed, really. I spent a year making a video around South Australia with the idea in my head that a lot of people around me were saying South Australia was boring and there's not much to do. And that kind of really annoyed me because I'd been out camping with my friends and exploring, and I saw how beautiful it really was. So I pretty much made a video about just my adventures and all the beautiful spots I go to. And then, yeah, I put it on Facebook and it ended up doing really well on Facebook. It got shared a lot and a lot of views, got picked up by Channel 9. And then that's when Georgie slid into my DMs or email. She contacted me from there.
Yeah. So I think that was in 2016.
2016.
And I hadn't seen any visual like that before in tourism at all. And it just was so incredible. And I felt like I had been really affected emotionally by it, which was really beautiful because that was our sole job. The tourism board was to prove that as a challenger brand, SA is not boring. And he completely delivered on that brief. So yeah, it was just like a perfect alignment of the stars. And I was like, yes, I need to meet this person. And he walked into the office and it was like this 6'4", 21-year-old. And everyone was looking at me going, what are you doing? I think you had your skateboard.
I had, backwards hat on, a skateboard. I've just been skating through the city or something. As Georgie mentioned earlier, goofy. So I definitely was goofing around.
Cool goofy
walking in. And that was actually like probably one of the most like nerve-wracking moments I had walking in that office for the first time. Just like huge, very professional. I was used to like tents and being out in the middle of nowhere. So just walking through there and seeing you at the end of you greeted me, and then I had to go sit in a room.
Like a boardroom
a boardroom, and we just chatted.
And then I think I gave him a few projects with complete creative control.
Yeah. So that's where my confidence for filmmaking came in, because at the beginning, obviously I wasn't earning any money. You know, you've got people asking why you're doing it if you're not making money, why you're pursuing it. But I just had the biggest passion for it. So getting that first job from Georgie really just gave me the absolute confidence, well, I can actually do this for a living. So essentially, I always tell Georgie she like changed my life from giving me that opportunity, because I don't know what I'd be doing, like be in a bar or.
But the same for me. Seeing his content really moved me, and every time he would send me a link, I would get so excited to see the end product. And my threshold of whether I liked it or not is whether I cried. And every single time I cried, because it was so beautiful and so moving and so full of passion and emotion. And that just wasn't on the market at that time. And yeah, so he changed my life creatively as well, because I found someone who just was exceptional at what they did. So yeah.
That's just such a beautiful story. In terms of measure of story, I think I almost started to tear up a little bit there. I'm hearing that, because I love those universe moments where you meet someone or you have an experience and you don't know where it's going to take you. I just think that's why this podcast exists, because I just think those moments can happen anywhere at any stage in life, no matter what you're doing. And I just think it's so exciting and inspiring. And there's something else about your story, Elliot, that I want to bring, I guess, a little bit more light and energy to, which is the fact that you took yourself from, even learning to use a GoPro and then filming and then taking that, putting that footage on, learning a platform to edit it, package it together, and just growing step by step, learning how to operate a drone, and just all of the steps that go into creating what you create really are so significant. And I think anybody with a creative energy or passion for something looks at that end result and goes, wow, that's so hard. And how am I ever going to get there? I'm never going to get there. Or I need to go to school and have somebody else tell me that I'm now allowed to go do this because I've done a certain course. But what I love about what your journey has been is that you've just gone through the motions and taught yourself in practice without any preconceived outcome in mind, just because you enjoy it and you want to learn about it. There's just something to be said for that, for all artistic outputs and all artistic direction.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it always comes down to passion and how much you love it. I wasn't in it for the money at the start, so I didn't really care, I absolutely loved it. And it literally got myself off the couch. Like every opportunity I had I was out, I was out filming. And I talk about it now, I talk about kind of like flow state. And I think my flow state is when I'm out filming. I'm only focusing on that one thing. I'm focusing on creating and bringing my vision to life. And every time I come back from trips, I'm just like, it's like I've meditated, I feel so good. So I was just going off that feeling and the passion. It all felt right, which I hadn't had that feeling ever before. So yeah.
And that is enough sometimes to go and just to keep going and to see what happens when you keep exploring. It's very cool. So when and how did this idea of a partnership start to come about?
So, we really appreciated each other's skill sets, obviously, for a long while. And I was so focused in my job, it sucked the life out of me. Like I really didn't have a social life. I didn't have like a romantic life. It just was my life. And so I had these certain goals that I wanted to deliver on in my last year, and I didn't really see what else I could do beyond that. And in that last year, that was really starting to create a YouTube channel in a way that a destination hadn't done before. And I wanted to tell stories with a human element that was backdropped against the landscape of SA. And I thought that was a really beautiful way to connect people into a destination without it being like a business to consumer marketing strategy. So that was what I really wanted to do. And that's all I really focused on. But as part of that, Elliot was on some of those shoots, and we ended up traveling a lot together for work, bringing about these ideas together into something beautiful. And then I think one weekend late last year, being 2021, I was at home. It was a wintry day or very cold. And I got to this state of being so frustrated with not knowing what I wanted to do in my next step, because I was really starting to think about how am I going to move to the next level, and it wasn't in the job that I was in. So I was just really frustrated. And as cliched as it sounds, I actually finally put it down on paper, and I guess I essentially manifested what I wanted. And then the next day, it was like a light bulb that went off in my mind, and I thought, oh my God, I want to go into business with Elliot. So I gave him a phone call, and I literally said, hey, do you want to go into business together? And he was like, yes. I said, but you haven't even thought about it. And we didn't even know really what the business was.
No, it was such an easy answer, because I think I was at the same stage in my career and growth, or where I wanted to go. I needed to take that next step from, just being a singular freelance creative to, all right, well, how do I grow this thing even bigger and work with bigger clients and
step out of the content creator.
Yeah, step out of the content creator. I want to be known for doing things differently. And it just felt right. Again, like I just go with the feelings. Like I said, when I first started creating, I just went with the feeling, and it was a no-brainer. I was just like, yep, cool. What are we doing to do this? And it just kind of naturally happened from there.
So that week I handed in my resignation from work, and then 4 weeks later I was, unemployed and very afraid, but excited. And we both really spoke about how we wanted to make sure when we started this business together, we weren't just going to do it haphazardly. Like it wasn't just going to be, flying by the seat of our pants. We do that a lot on shoots, but not in terms of the business. So we really invested a lot in our accounting and our legal structure. And we basically really focused on that for the first couple of months and got everything set up, which was really, it felt very much like we were adulting and so very foreign feeling. But we're so thankful that we've done that now, because the business is growing quite quickly. So all the foundations and the structures are quite solid, and it's just left up to us now to really keep pushing to the next level every day.
That's such good advice, I think, for a lot of people. Is it's so tempting to get into the execution, and particularly in a creative landscape. You're like, okay, who can we work with? What ideas can we do? Who can we pitch? But taking the time to set that up in the right way and have those conversations that I imagine sometimes can be a little challenging as well. How do we pay ourselves, and what do we feel comfortable with in that space, and who manages that? All of those conversations, to get those over. And I'm making a guess here that you had to have all those conversations.
Exactly the conversations that we had, for sure.
And I think once you take that, they're all the biggest stresses in my eyes, is all the financial stuff, all the legal stuff. As soon as you take that stress out and you're okay, it allows you to be able to be creative on your videos. You're not having to think, is this wrong, or am I doing this wrong when I when I'm making a video, it really just, it takes that stress out. So I think the sooner you can get on top of all that stuff, the better.
Definitely. And the nature of what we do can be quite risky and quite dangerous, especially on shoot. We've been talking about filming a lot of more behind the scenes stuff, but it comes with, being careful about showing what we do. But we really wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable that we were acting within the framework of the law and our insurance. And so, it just really made us feel comfortable knowing that we actually are okay, and we can take these risks.
Yeah. First context to that in the show notes, I might put that video that you shared about the snow trip, which just looked so intense in terms of danger and putting yourself at the front line. That was a pretty gnarly one. So I can appreciate why you had the need to set that up. At that time, how are you feeling about the financial risk of all this, about being in business together, those setup costs?
So for me, because I was used to being a freelance, irregular payments, I wasn't as worried, because I was so used to living from paycheck to paycheck, or waiting a few months to get paid, and just draining your bank account to zero, because I'm big on reinvesting into my business all the time. So I was used to having no money, because I just spend it all on reinvesting. So I think I was personally less worried about the financials, because I'd been dealing with that. But Georgie, I think you had a little bit more, just because you had such consistency in your...
Yeah, having a paycheck every fortnight and a nice paycheck was really comforting. But I had been saving for a house, so I decided to invest that into my living costs for the next X amount of months or years, whatever it needs to be. But honestly, like I didn't really have to think about it too seriously, because no great reward comes from taking no risk at all. So yeah, it was something that I was very comfortable in doing, and we believe in what we're doing and we don't ever doubt it. So we know that it's going to pay off. And like Elliot said, at every opportunity we get, we always reinvest back into the business, and how that looks is either more travel or better equipment, or just financing a project ourselves if we need to, in order to be able to show what we can do.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And tell me about establishing your first contract. So you go past that stage, you're set up, you're ready to go out into the world, and you get your first contract. How did that come about? How did it feel?
It happened really quickly. It was with Porsche Australia. And
so like no biggie then. No.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, it was such a cool client, and someone that we had both really wanted to work with before. And I remember the day, because it was Elliot's birthday, and we both get obviously email notifications come through on our phone. And I think we both jumped onto WhatsApp and screenshotted the email at the same time and sent it to each other, and was like, oh my God, can you believe? And that was a really cool project to start with, because it was a global client, and we had full creative control to a certain extent, and the risk wasn't terribly high either. So managing that first contract was a bit of a breeze, actually, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And a good introduction into the contracts that we were going to be getting in the next sort of like 6 to 8 months. So they just keep on getting a little bit more and more substantial now.
That would have been just such an exciting moment, seeing that come through. Did it come off the back of a tender? Did you have to pitch for it, or was it a relationship you're able to develop?
It didn't come off anything.
No,
I think it was just the
profile, I think.
Yeah, just from Instagram profile.
Love that.
So yeah, because whenever I'm technically not working on a client shoot, I'll always be out creating still, whether that's, putting up stories or going on trips, and just really trying to hone in on my skills as a creative. And I'm always putting that work out. So trying to be consistent with that, I find, has worked in the past with getting those clients in.
Yeah. I think the power of socials and the power of sharing your work just to see what happens, it can never be pushed to the side. I just hear so many wonderful stories about people connecting with partners or clients or the like through Instagram and through just being authentic. So that's so cool that it's not so impossible. It's not kind of a secret mission in terms of getting in front of clients. It's just putting stuff out there and connecting with people and seeing how it goes.
For sure. Yeah. Consistency is key, I think. And like Elliot said, he's always creating. So, and I guess that's the point of what we're doing. We're trying to build to a certain level where we can just finance our personal passion projects full time. I mean, we do really want to work with, we've got some big clients on our goal list, but they would be the pinnacle for us. And once we get to that stage, we hope that we can produce stuff on the same level, but under our own brand.
When you started, did you have a bit of a plan laid out for, we might go for this brand, or this kind of sector? Did you free flow? How did that happen?
No, we created a business plan.
Did a business plan and wrote down kind of our goals and dreams, our dream clients, and our dream opportunities.
We were quite sort of attentive to that kind of detail, because we really wanted to be clear. So we had definitely our mission, our vision, and our brand message. And I still reference that document. I've basically got that document open on my laptop every day, because in communication, I always reference that. And I think that is probably, like, a business plan doesn't have to be scary. And it was something that we both weren't super excited to write, but once we got going, it was like all of our ideas in our head coming out onto paper really seamlessly. And it's a very succinct document. It's only about 5 pages long, but that's actually more beneficial to us because it's very articulate and there's not a lot of fluff in there. We're certainly not about fluff. So it's kept us on the straight and narrow. And in fact, we actually just had our planning day for year 2 last week. And it's just enabled us to build, it's like a building block onto the first business plan.
Mm. You guys are like my hashtag goals in terms of organisation. Like, that's really impressive.
It doesn't feel like that.
No.
I think it's just like being able to get it out of your head and visually. Like, I think both of us are very visual people.
Totally.
Just being able to, get all of that out onto something visual and just going over it and looking at it works really well for us. And it's like, you know, you see it as like, what are those, like manifesting kind of goal lists that you write in your notes at the start of the year. I think both Georgie and I were already doing that before we started the business. We would always write down our goals for the year, and so I think that came in handy when starting the business plan, for sure.
Do you ever have any creative disagreements in your work life together in your partnership?
Not really.
I don't think so.
It's really weird. Like the other day, especially when we caught up the other day, we had a meeting the other day about potential pictures we wanted to put out, and we're just on the same wavelength with everything. Like even with, there was this quote on Instagram, I think this page, they're called Niche. Niche. There was a filmmaker, I forget his name, but in the caption, it was a really powerful sentence it
was like an amalgamation of all his really impressive quotes.
Yeah. And like without communicating with each other, like I had already screenshotted it and cropped it in to be able to put on my screensaver. And then Georgie later on sent it to me. She's like, oh, you should check this out. You know, with little things like that, we're just like on the same wavelength with everything. So we don't really have any arguments about creative direction or anything like that.
It's mainly like, so I don't know if people will find this interesting, but it's mainly like, to what end will we go and get the shot? And being female and like not as fit as Elliot, I'm a lot more risk adverse, and he is not. So we've decided on our values for the next 12 months. And one of them is send it if the consequence is an inconvenience. And if no one's going to get hurt, or if no one's going to be in danger, then we will send it and just try and get it for the shot. And I think that's the only thing. Like we were in the snow last month or something, and we were there for a project with Land Rover, and we were off-road, and the conditions were a little bit slushy and muddy and icy. And don't get me wrong, the Land Rover can handle pretty much anything, but I am not an experienced four-wheel driver. And so obviously I'm not the one filming, so I have to drive. And Elliot's like, how about you just like drive through here? We'll go and test it. We'll walk out and just make sure it's all good. And anyway, he's like, so you good? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, oh no. And then I was like, no, I really don't think so. Because like, what happens if we get bogged? Then we're going to miss our flight. And like, that's probably the only time that we would agree to disagree, really.
Yeah, I think, but like, I need that also, you know, which is, I do understand, but like,
I've got to answer to his girlfriend. So I've got to keep him safe too.
Yeah.
I'm sure Land Rover appreciated the caution and care as well in that moment.
Yeah. We still got the shots, but like in a bit of a different location.
Yeah.
So.
Being a creative partnership and producing such incredible creative work, I imagine it's hard to ever feel done in a day, or done with it, what you can capture, done with what you've put together, just kind of wrap something up and set it off. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I feel like as soon as one project's done, it's like, okay, what's next? You know, straight away. It's like, what can we create next? What can we do next? It's kind of like a never-ending cycle, being creative, which can be really tough sometimes. But you know, at the end of the day, just love it. We love creating.
And you've got to ride that creative inspiration wave when you're rolling on it, because it doesn't always flow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, you don't always get the inspiration, which is some of the hardest thing to get, I think.
Yeah. And I can always tell when he's in full flight on that wave, because my WhatsApp will be going hot and he'll be sending me screenshots. Like the other day, we had just finished this mood board and this pitch, and then he started building on it. And I was like, hang on, what? Is this the same project? Is this different? Like, I'm confused. I don't know how to help you. And then he just calls me and he's like, I'm really inspired. And I was like, okay.
I'm coming to the cafe now.
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
So I think that is the brilliance of our partnership is I understand. I'm not the creative, but I understand it, and you can't clip those wings at all. And you've got to really embrace it and encourage it so that it flourishes. And you've just got to ride that wave with them because, it doesn't happen all the time. And after a big film project, he will be absolutely exhausted because he does not rest. And I'll be exhausted because I try and keep up with him. But he goes straight into the editing suite. And then like he's 2 weeks in this sort of like office of his, and I'll try not to disturb, but inevitably I always do. And you can just tell like every day he becomes like a little bit flatter, a little bit
takes its toll.
Darker, and he just gets really exhausted.
Like once I start a project, it's like it's so hard not to finish it. Like I have to finish it, and it does take its toll, but like I love it at the same time. With this recent one that you were talking about earlier, the one that we went to the snow, I've never felt so happy editing. It was just all just working out, but at the same time, like I'm having some of the latest nights. I'm still trying to be active, like go out and, walk or go to the gym, be a boyfriend, clean dishes, all that kind of stuff. So that's where it starts taking its toll.
I think there's a lot of business owners that can relate on that generally, back to that aspect of like you've got work on, so you're never done. But then even when the work's done, you're thinking about, oh, what else? What's next? How do I? And then trying to be a human being in and around your work commitments, particularly when it's for yourself. Imagine, a lot of people can relate to that feeling. Is there something that you wish you knew earlier in the process about working for yourselves and working in partnership?
I think the thing that I realize is I really miss talking to people during the day. I'm a very collaborative worker, and that's probably the thing that I miss. So we had this conversation the other day, and like he's happy to stay in his room all day because that's probably what you've conditioned yourself to. Whereas I need constant stimulation. Otherwise, I feel like I go into a little bit of a depressive hole. And so I'm always at a coffee shop, or I'll go to mum and dad's and work there for a time, or I'll do like an hour at my house. And then I'll be like, no, I need to go for a swim or something. And then even when I'm swimming, there's no music or podcast to distract me. So it's just my thoughts. And so it's this constant roundabout of my own thoughts without other people to share those thoughts with. So that's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. But otherwise, I mean, it's not a bad thing because it's kind of building mental resilience after all.
Yeah. And I think I'm learning that side more because I've been working. Before Georgie and I were working together, I was just solely on my own. So learning that from Georgie, I can see the value in actually being in the same room and working together. Like our ideas can bounce off each other. We're way more productive in terms of Georgie has a simple little question that she needs me to do. I'm the only one that can do it. I can just do it straight away rather than having to communicate via phone. So I'm starting to learn that side of it, that I see the value in it because we're just way more productive, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot more efficient, I think.
Yeah, and like our whiteboard just goes crazy, which is good.
Do you think you'll end up bringing other people into the business at some stage?
Yeah, so right at the very beginning, that was one of our goals. We're starting to look for other younger creatives all over Australia, around South Australia, internationally. It was, one of our big goals to be able to bring on younger creatives, any kind of creative, and just give them the opportunities that they might not necessarily get within their first few years of starting out. Because as I said earlier, I was earning no money from the very beginning. I had no mentors. I was just all on my own. So we really wanted to be that guide for someone else. Georgie had done that with me and saw how, fun it is and satisfying it is. So we really wanted to make that one of our goals for starting the business for sure.
We have been very fortunate this past 8 months in our first 8 months of business to be able to subcontract out to a couple of people. And that has been really helpful in terms of freeing up Elliot's time, but also for him to film with somebody else. Because if I'm on the shoot, my role is very different to an assistant photographer or assistant videographer. So it's definitely something that we have done and we do want to do more of it. It's just finding the people that really understand what it takes to really appreciate the time and effort it takes to build a business behind the scenes, because things don't just happen. And a lot goes into relationship building, and that is so important to us. And we don't really ever want people to take that for granted. So I think we've found a couple of really talented people who have definitely aided us along the way, but we certainly want to build that as we build the business internationally.
I'm interested in one aspect because I think no matter what your art form is, there is a tendency to undercharge or undervalue for your creativity. And I'm interested if you had that experience, that challenge when you're going out, you're pitching yourself. Did you kind of look at it and go, hang on a minute, I am way underquoting here. I need to get better at this. Is that something that happened?
Well, that's the good thing about Georgie is it's taken me a long time to realize my worth as a creative, but Georgie has really put that confidence in me to make me believe in my worth and how much we should be charging. I think that's where you've really changed the game for, us.
I try to.
Yeah.
It's hard now because I'm in the same position that he was. So it's definitely something that comes with confidence, and we know what we're worth. And I think that is the quiet confidence that we have behind the scenes. And we will absolutely invest in businesses if they invest in us. And that goes we won't ever work with someone once. We will always want to work with a brand or a destination. We want them to be long-term partners. And so with that, we don't expect it to be a one-way investment. So for us, it's definitely about proving the way that we work. And I think it takes brands and destinations a while to understand that what we produce doesn't come with a team of 20 people. And I think that's what they're used to. And that is not how we operate. We do everything, and that's how we like to do it. It's certainly probably creating a rod for our own backs, but that's how we control the quality. That's how we control the style. That's how we control the creative direction. But brands don't really understand that you don't necessarily need, and this is absolutely not to downplay the importance of agencies and production houses, but for what we do, we don't necessarily at this stage need an art director, a sound and lighting person. We probably will get to that stage, but for right now, we're very happy with the outputs versus the inputs.
Yeah.
I think there's a few lessons to take out there in terms of being patient and waiting for the clients that are willing to invest in you. That the value of just being able to have repeat business without going through a pitch stage and a get to know you in a relationship building stage is just so worth it. And I know what you mean when you pitch something out and they say, yeah, we can do it, but that's nowhere near what we were thinking of paying. No one wants to work for people who say that. That person, that brand might feel like they get a win, but as a contractor, a creative, a professional, an art director, a strategist, no matter what your role, when you're undervalued in that way, it comes out in the work, and it's not worth it. It's really important to be patient.
Yeah. And I think honestly, this is a space that we have been just ruminating in for the past probably 4 weeks. And that is, our business model is not built on Instagram, and we will refuse to ever have a business model built on Instagram. So the more we can get off that platform in terms of our recognition for our success, the better, because it's just not the direction that we want to go into. And of course, Instagram is amazing and we love it, but we're not going to bend to conform to a creative template. So the more we can really focus on building our business where people appreciate an art form like film and storytelling, that means we'll be here in 10 years' time. And that's what's ultimately important to us.
Because at the end of the day, we want to be in it to create beautiful art, not
campaigns or one sort of sponsored ads. And
we don't want to be Instagrammers. We want to be creators of art, and that's what we love. So yeah, I
heard a quote the other day. It was just perfectly, the syntax of it was perfect, and I'm not going to be able to repeat it the same way, but essentially someone was being interviewed and they were an American and they were a very, very, very well-known influencer. I don't know who it is, but multi-million number of followers. And they described their income or their business as the most successful McDonald's franchise established on top of a volcano. And I couldn't think of anything more stressful than having a business model that could erupt underneath you that's not in your control.
Oh my God, that's so legit.
Yeah. Just says it all, doesn't it?
For any young creators out there listening, when I started out, I always get questions like, do you need heaps of followers to be able to get work? Or do you need heaps of likes on your photos to be able to get jobs? You don't at all. When I first started, I had only a few thousand followers, and I was getting all these good opportunities, and you can still make it happen without the followers, and I think that's where younger people struggle to see, and that's why they conform to the Instagram algorithm or TikTok, or that's what I say to a lot of young creatives, like, you just don't need those followers to get work.
You just need your own individual style and know who you are as a creative. And if you have a portfolio of work that is on a website, that's really all that you need. Because you can have an Instagram following with, say, 10,000, and you're an up and coming creative that wants to get into film. And if you're having to put out reels every day that are to a viral or a trending song, a company that comes to you or a brand that comes to you and says, we're interested in what you can offer, your work and your time has gone into creating reels to elevate and compete, like allow Instagram to compete with TikTok or vice versa, rather than focusing on your own style. So, and don't get me wrong, there are people out there who do it brilliantly, and hats off to them. That's a fantastic business model. It's just not the way that we want to grow, because it's not the kind of content that we want to create.
Yeah.
But I think having your own individual style and knowing who you are as a creative is probably the most powerful tool you can have in your arsenal.
I want to take it almost out of that creative context and put it into a more broad human metaphor. If you just follow something that's authentic to you without conforming to what you think it should be, it will come. That age-old adage, build it, that will come. Just concentrate on what feels good. And you never know where those opportunities are going to come from.
Yeah.
And putting the work in, like, it takes 10,000 hours to be great at something, and that's a proven fact almost. So it's not going to come overnight, and it's not going to come with 10,000 followers. It'll come with 10,000 hours. So that's the way.
Legit. There's the title of your podcast right there. Are there any big dreams that you would like to put out into the universe? Can we do some manifestation for you?
Do we need to flip the whiteboard over?
No.
Really need to get a whiteboard, you guys. You're inspiring me.
It's so good. Just being able to lay it all out, and it can be messy. You can just change things around. So heading is next up, bitch.
Oh yes, I love that.
Plan. It's not that.
In the creative side of things, it's Netflix. We really want to be able to, mainly with FPV drones. So FPV drones are a very new technology that are coming out, and it's kind of like where drones are going. So learning that skill to be able to put a big $10,000, $20,000 camera on top of a drone that can fly through small gaps is a big goal of ours, I think. And that kind of intertwines with being able to go on Netflix. There's opportunities that Netflix give out for people that can be able to do that skill.
Well, we had one exciting conversation. The timing wasn't quite right, but that was for Elliot to drone FPV. And that is definitely the space that we want to get into, just to really learn production on a global scale. And he definitely has that skill set, and one of very few in Australia. And we're just looking at investing back into FPV and sort of upgrading the type of drone that we have. And then the camera that sits on top of that is not just like a built-in drone camera or a GoPro. It's like a proper cinema camera. So industry standard camera for like what Netflix film with, what they have a recommendation. So it's just taking that risk to be able to invest all that money to put that camera in the air, which could crash at any moment. So it's scary, but we think it's going to be beneficial, hopefully, for the future. You want to go a few more? So there's a few more clients, but Nat Geo is definitely that we would both love to work with, just because of their ethos and the natural world always at the epicenter of their stories. Same with BBC. And there's a few other clients. So Sony is a really big partner of really ours at the moment, which is amazing. We want to grow that and develop that. I'm very thankful for the support that they have provided so far, because Elliot absolutely loves shooting on Sony, and if we can have Sony underwater, on land and in the air, then we'll be very happy.
We have other goals, like start to make a passive income through other streams and diversify our income as much as we can. So it can set us up to be able to do those passion projects and take that little thing in the back of your head saying, when's that next paycheck coming in? I think that's a big goal, definitely.
And then one that we're sort of starting to explore is doing more commercial work. So really big client work, but that's just being sort of one chink in that chain, mainly just for experience and for networking and just for the clout that comes with it, which, you know, that's not why we do it, but it certainly helps. With our confidence.
Yeah. I think at the start of this year, one of the goals was to network more and put yourself out there. And one example to that is I just got a ticket to America, had no plans or anything like that. We knew we wanted to try to get some clients in the States and just expand there. So we just bought a ticket to go to America, no plan at all. I just went on my own and just stayed in Airbnb and tried to make connections while I was there. And in doing so, that gave us the job with DGI, so one of the big clients. So that's definitely a big goal for us, is just to network as much as possible. And I think we've really seen the value in networking, which personally I hadn't really tried or put myself out there to do before, because it is hard. It's very uncomfortable. So I think that's definitely a big goal as well, is to network more and keep meeting people and just get your name out there.
And I think what people probably see 10% of what we do from what we share on stories and stuff that we share as an end result. But the things that go on behind the scenes to make all this stuff happen it's like an uphill battle 24/7 really. And that trip for Elliot to the States, the moment it started, like from the Adelaide airport to the moment he got home, was an absolute disaster.
Shit show.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it, like mentally as well, like it was very tough mentally. At the start, because of COVID, all the flights got cancelled and I had a lot of issues at the airport just getting out of Australia. We already had lost out of money as soon as I got to the airport because I couldn't get on a plane.
He hadn't done his PCR test, even that was my fault. And so he missed his flight to Brazil because he was meant to be going to Brazil on a work trip. And then I was in Bali at the time, and I think it was like, 3 a.m. or something my time. And thankfully, like my phone was on, so he was calling, I could hear. So I was like, okay, well, we'll get you to Melbourne so that you can catch a flight to get to Brazil from Melbourne. So
I went to Melbourne because they had a PCR testing place right at the airport that you could get when you were there.
Yeah.
So I flew to Melbourne, but we didn't buy the other tickets just because we didn't want to lose that money. So went to go get the PCR, but they need a ticket for you to be able to get a PCR. So we just had to buy the bullet, and we had a discussion like what's going to be most beneficial, whether I go to, it was actually Peru, I think.
That's true.
Yeah, it was Peru, or to LA to network and make connections. So we were just like, stuff it, just go to LA with no plan or anything like that. So that was, from the get-go, it was a bit stressful.
Letting down that contact in Peru as well.
Like I don't like disappointing people, and that would have been a good networking opportunity as well, but it didn't work out. We had to try to think of another way to make it worth it. So ended up flying to LA and just being there on your own in a new city. I'd never been to the States before, and I was just struggling to do anything. I couldn't hire a car, which was one of the goals, to be able to drive around and meet people. Couldn't hire a car because you need a credit card, and in Australia you only need a debit card. So I didn't have a credit card with me.
He tried like 5 places.
Tried different rental companies, and
in between those, like he was having to stay over at different Airbnbs, which were like 600 Australian dollars a night, just so that he could try the next one the next day. And
so there was a week of that. I was just literally a week of trying to set myself up in the States while losing out on all this money on Airbnb, because I wanted to be in the area that all these people I knew were, so I could meet them. So that was a big expense. And then what was the mental? There was a big,
it was more just like he was on his own, and he called and he's like, everything is just telling me to come home. Like it's too hard and I'm not moving. I'm coming to the next day and I'm having the same problem. So at which point do I accept that this is a no, or which point do I just keep persevering? And I could hear it in his voice. He sounded so flat, and I just felt terrible. And I was like, well, do you want to just come to Bali? Like you can create here and you can meet people here. And he was like, I'm just going to go for a walk. And so he went for a walk and rang back, and he's like, no, I'm going to stay one more night, see what happens. I'm going to try and meet this person, that person. And then sure enough, he lined it up, and then the rest is history, and he's formed some really amazing contacts. So it was not easy, and
not easy.
No.
But so worth it in the end. And we've seen that now, what it takes to put that effort in. So we know that formula for next time.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of stress is gone for the next time we do it. So it gets easier and easier every time you do it.
Such an important metaphor, again, just more broadly for business, just trying things, also acknowledging when something might not be working, but pushing through barriers as well. It's a tough battle in the moment.
Yeah. And just being open with each other, I think that's the biggest thing about Georgie and I. We're so open with each other and honest, and we just communicate really well, like with how we're feeling mentally, and I think that really saves us some issues.
Yeah, we ride the highs and the lows, because you can talk to your friends and family about it, but no one really gets it like Elliot gets it or I get it, because we're both in the exact same situation, and it's our lives on the line. I mean, our threshold for what we can persevere with just keeps on getting bigger and bigger, which is really cool.
And it just brings right back to that, when a partnership is right, and you know that it's worth pursuing, and you know that it's worth doing it together than alone. It's just, there's so much value in that. You guys, it's just the best thing. I mean, as I said before we hit record, hearing about your partnership through Georgie, I just had such a desire to hear more about your story, because I just think it's so empowering and brilliant for so many people to hear that they're right around the corner, could be the person that you need to grow to the next level personally and professionally. And I'm so happy that you found that in each other. So a huge congratulations to you, and a big thank you for sharing your story so vulnerably and so beautifully. And I just cannot wait to see what you do next. I can't wait to watch the Netflix gig. One last question. How can the listener and I support you on your journey?
Supporting, I guess, the final products of the videos and the BTS that we put out, showing that behind the scenes.
Just, watching, liking, commenting, and sharing mainly. And if you've got someone that is in a particular business, or someone that would benefit from having content filmed in the style that we excel at, then pass our details on and see what happens.
I'll make sure that I have the links to all of your work in the show notes, so that the listener can go and get around you and experience your work for themselves, because it is really special and really beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing your story. It's been such a pleasure to hear it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of starting over with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you liked the episode and are keen to hear more, please hit the follow button and leave a review. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram @unemployedandafraid, where there's more goodies and links to today's show notes. See you there.